And we're rolling here at UCLA on the 20th day of October, where it's a beautiful day, as usual. The sunshine is shining, and we're about to hear from Riley, who's going to share 3 emotions with us.
Alright guys, hi, I'm Riley.
Hi, Riley.
So I want to start us off with a little quote first from Christopher Morley. He says, "The greatest poem ever known is one all poets have outgrown, the poetry, innate, untold, of being only 4 years old." I think this is a really good quote. It's really applicable to the movie I'm going to share with you today. My favorite movie is Monsters Incorporated, and I'm going to share 3 emotions that it made me feel. It made me feel sad, nostalgic, and cheerful. Alright? So, in the review of the movie, the Wall Street Journal, Joe Morgenstern, said that who doesn't need what this movie has to give. And I really agree with that. Honestly, the movie has a very wide range of emotions that it shows. It hits everything. It makes you, it's one of those movies you can't help but smile at. So, for my sad part of the movie was when Waternoose, the CEO of Monsters Incorporated, banishes Sully and Mike. And this really made me feel that way because they were banished. They felt so alone where they were. And in high school, that happened to me as well. I did something that made a lot of my friends really not like me, and for a long time, I felt very alone, and it really hurt me. When that happened, I just didn't have many places to go, and I felt a lot like Sully did. So, then for my nostalgic emotion is when the very first demonstration that happens in the little module that they do, where Sully scares the little child, but before that, the little kid is getting tucked in by his mom to go to sleep. And my mom did that when I was younger. It made me feel very nostalgic of childhood. She'd always tuck me in super nicely, like a good night, Riley, a little kiss in the cheek or something like that. So it made me feel very nostalgic, and it happened right when I saw that in the movie. And so for my third emotion, it made me feel very cheerful. At the very end of the movie, Sully and the little girl Boo have a very strong connection to each other. And at the very end of the movie, he's all sad because she had to leave and everything like that. But then Mike remade the door, and he opens the door, kind of peeks his head in, and you just hear the kitty or something, that little that she was there, and it made me feel very cheerful that it all ended up in that he has a connection that strong to someone else. And personally, when I came to college, I was of course a little afraid that might not happen. I might not find those key connections. But I really have with my buddy called Dwight. Me and him are a lot like Boo and Sully. We're kind of inseparable. Like, we need to be with each other all the time. We'd be talking all the time. We really enjoy each other's company. And so when I saw that in the movie, it really made me feel cheerful that that connection is there. So overall, I've told you guys that about Monsters Incorporated. It made me feel sad, nostalgic, and cheerful. And really, it is a roller coaster of emotions. The movie really, it's one of the movies you can't help but just smile at. It's so heartwarming. So reminds me a lot of my childhood. And just as Chris Morley said in his quote, childhood is one of those things that everybody outgrows, but really, we can always remember it and the good things and the bad things that happen. So, finally, there should be no doubt that Monsters Incorporated moved me, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. 304. Let's start on this side today. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Dominic.
Hi, Dominic.
I like the use of your arms and how you used your body to further explain your stories.
Okay, so good gestures. Help to emphasize key points. Improvement.
Hi, I'm Peyton.
Hi, Peyton.
Like Dominic said, I think that you were really good at using gestures, and your tone of voice was really conversational, which was good, but it was a little bit short. I think you could have added some more details. The stories that you used when you were talking about the 3 different emotions weren't really specific stories. They were more just like times in your life. And so I think if you like drew on like a specific time that your mom like tucked you into bed or read you a certain story or whatever, then like that would have been more vivid. So.
Well put. Yes, thank you. Well, I'm not going to belabor the obvious. You could have added more. You had about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Loved your opening, though. Loved the quote. It reminds me of an E. Cummings quote about down they forget as up they grow. You know, it's sort of, you know, we lose that innocence as, you know, people grow up. But there's an innocence in childhood that's wonderful. So you told us that you were going to share 3 emotions with us: nostalgic, sad, and cheerful, right? You had a good quote from the Wall Street Journal, and you said you agreed with it, and so that was well done and well put. Now, on your first emotion, sad, you related it to an incident, but you left it vague. I guess you didn't want to, out of embarrassment, say what you did. It must have been something pretty bad that made all your friends go, this guy is bad news, and they turned their back on you. I needed to have you elaborate more on how rejected you felt, and I guess I would have liked to have known what the story was, but that's completely up to you. But we needed more detail on just how rejected and how sad you felt and how alone you felt at the mistake you had made. So that's the first thing. On your nostalgic, yes, I agree with Peyton that, you know, it could have been, well, one night when I was very upset, my mother read me Good Night Moon, Good Night Sun, you know, and it reminded me of those great nights when I had a bad day, but I could always count on my mother tucking me in and reading me a story and easing me into the night and making it more into a story and expressing, feeling the emotions you felt with your mother tucking you in. And then finally, cheerful, you talk about your friend D. White and that you're inseparable, right? And so a story about how inseparable you are and how happy that makes you that you have a friend that you're that tight with would have been more effective. Your summary, your conclusion, and your tie back were all well done. Just work on those things I talked about. Let's look at your canais. You said, let's get rid of the ums. Don't speak too fast, and don't forget to walk. How'd it go?
Well, I walked.
You walked? Yeah, I almost lost you on the camera, by the way. You walked so well. I was paying so attention to you. I was, oh yeah, I'm the camera operator too.
Attention.
Okay.
I can't remember. God, I can't stop doing this. I said it a little bit, but I think I did better than I used to. I did last time.
As I've said to others, if you ask people to raise their hand when you're practicing with them, and every time you do it, then they will diminish. You can really slow down and just savor the words that you are communicating to your audience. But you have a nice presentational style, and you're a very likable speaker, and so that's good. So you did a nice job. Thank you. Are you a B? Well, we're doing B's first, so have a seat. Okay, so let's hear from Christina. Christina Vong. Is she here? No Christina? Okay, that's good. Did she drop or something? Okay. How about Lauren? No, excuse me. Jennifer. Jennifer Rodriguez. Not here today. Okay.
She's here.
She's here?
I said she always is over there.
Jennifer Rodriguez. Praise the Lord. Okay, for Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Hello.
How you doing?
Better be-
Okay. I see you need a stapler.
Yes.
Oh, you gave me your Scantron. How'd that happen?
Oh, sorry. I'm kind of a mess today.
Oh, yeah, and you don't have the version you have on that either. That worries me. What version are you?
I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
version 6. Okay. Yeah, get it from her, so don't use that one.
Okay.
Here, give me that one back so we don't have confusion in the ranks. Thank you. Okay, Jennifer stands before you, managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly eyes near the front and center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi everyone, I'm Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
So ghosts, goblins, and ghouls. That's right, Halloween is here. And what better way to get us into the Halloween spirit than the movie Hocus Pocus? Leslie Sharman says the movie is a perfect mix between candy corn with just a bit of creepiness. The film puts more treat than it does give us tricks. For me, the 3 emotions that I felt from this film were being mesmerized, frustration,
And hopeful.
Sorry, and hopeful. So today I'm going to share with you 3 stories that that made me feel these emotions while watching the movie. So the first emotion that I felt while watching this movie was being mesmerized. The incident from the movie that made me feel mesmerized was a scene where Sarah, one of the witches, Sarah Jessica Parker, is on the broom singing, "Come little children, I'll take thee away into a land of enchantment." The children are in a trance-like state, walking their way to the witch's house. And while I wasn't necessarily put into a trance by being hypnotized into a song into a witch's house, I do remember a time where I was mesmerized, and that was the first time that I went to see the Nutcracker Ballet. I was in 1st grade, and I had never seen a ballerina before. And I remember sitting there in my seat, staring up with eyes wide open, looking at the ballerinas gliding through the air, and they made it seem so effortlessly easy, and they stood on their tippy toes, and I was stunned. I don't remember blinking, and I made it a point to visit every year back ever since I saw that. The music only contributed to the experience, and it reminded me of feeling mesmerized from the movie Hocus Pocus. So the second emotion that I felt from seeing Hocus Pocus was frustration. The incident from the film that made me feel frustrated was when the 3 main characters go into the ball and try to warn people that the Sanderson witches had been resurrected from the dead, only to be not believed. And I remember an incident where I wasn't believed, and that it was when I used to play the flute when I was younger, and I'm allergic to nickel. And I noticed that whenever I would play the flute for too long, my lips would swell up. My instructor didn't really take my allergy seriously, and when I told him that I felt a tingling sensation on my lips, he basically thought that I was just trying to cut practice short. And I kept playing, and once my lips nearly doubled in size and turned 3 shades darker of red, he freaked out, and he finally believed me and demanded me to stop. All I could think was, "I told you so." And the third emotion that I felt while watching Hocus Pocus was hopefulness. And the incident of the film that made me feel this was when Binks, the black talking cat, gets ran over by a city bus. And all hope seems to be lost, but then he rises from the dead. This reminded me of when I thought my pet cockatoo was gone for good. I was about to water the grass outside, and my pet birdie liked to sit on my shoulder. She was sitting on my shoulder, and she got startled by the sudden stream of water coming from the hose, and she flew away. I looked for her down the street, called her name, and I couldn't find her anywhere. I broke the bad news to my mom, and we decided to make flyers of missing bird signs. So on the way to the store to make copies of the flyer, we heard a shriek, and we both immediately knew that it was Birdie. So we pulled over, we looked up into the tree, we followed the shrieks, and there, sure enough, there was Birdie. We rang the doorbell of the house whose tree Birdie was in, and to our surprise, he lent us out his ladder, and he climbed up the ladder, and he rescued Birdie from the tree. When I had lost all hope and thought that Birdie was gone forever, I was surprised when she came back, just as Binks miraculously rose from the dead. So in conclusion, or in summary rather, I've told you about 3 emotions I felt while watching the movie Hocus Pocus. They were being mesmerized, frustrated, and hopefulness. And I agree that the movie had just the right amount of creepiness to candy corn. And the movie definitely gave us more treat than it did tricks, and it puts the treat in trick or treat. Thank you.
Thank you. 451. Okay.
Hi, my name is Audrey.
Hi, Audrey.
I like Jennifer. I think that it was good that you mentioned very specific stories from the past, like for instance the flute, like when you're practicing the flute and so on. And I also liked how you still maintain eye contact even when you kind of forgot some words. But that's great that you still maintain eye contact.
Yeah, you shared real stories to go with her emotions, so they really lit up, didn't they? Let's go here for improvement.
Hi, I'm Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I really liked your speech, and I liked the whole intro that you made to it. I think you could have moved around and used more hand motions. You were very still and kind of swaying side to side instead of being more confident and using hand motions.
Yeah. Jennifer, let's talk about your speech. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed your stories a lot. Today you seem sort of frightened or not really excited about doing your speech, or sort of, uptight or something. Were you?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, well that came through, so you need to learn to fake that fear or tear that you're feeling inside, and just exude confidence and fake it till you make it, till you have it. You started in early with your quote, and that was how you tied back, and so that was okay. Your thesis preview was fine. Your first story about seeing the Nutcracker and describing it and the ballerinas flying through the air, I felt the mesmerization too, so that was good. As I wrote here, I'd like to see you move on each of the movements. Did you just forget to move? You were so petrified or something today. I think you moved before. The other thing was you kept your arms at your side, almost.
Oh, I caught myself going like this.
Yeah, and just let them be gesturing naturally. As for the frustration, it was a good story that you told about your flute teacher who was insensitive about your allergy to nickel. And I think that the only thing I'd suggest about that story was in the end, and as I said, I told you so, and that's why I felt so darn frustrated. Return to that emotion that you're communicating at the end, so it's real clear. But it was a good story, and we felt the emotion of you having to just, be forced to practice. It reminds me of that movie about the drummer. Anyway, the third emotion you were communicating was hopeful, and again a good story. You lost your bird named Birdie, right? That's unique. And I really could relate to this. I lost a cat for 2 weeks, and we thought she was, because we live in a rural area, and I thought the coyotes had gotten her. And then 2 weeks later, we were just driving down a random street, and she crossed in front of us. It was bizarre. So, we got her back, but we were lucky. But you were lucky to get your bird back and have this person go up the tree and get the bird back. And then you did return to the emotion of hopeful in the end of that story, and so that was good. Your summary you almost missed, but you got it, and there should be no doubt in this room that the film really moved me. And you tied back to your film review, so that was good. But again, when you watch yourself tonight, you're going to see that just with more practice, you can have just significantly more confidence and be crisper in your delivery, and it would be much more effective. But you did a nice job today. Thank you. Okay, that'll bring us to Riley. Oh, whoops. Okay. Hi Joe Min. Who's that? Hi Joe Min? Is that person here? No? Okay. Jennifer Kwok. Jennifer? Okay, come on down. It's time for you to shine. The price is right.
Okay, so this is for my respect speech because I didn't do my student introductions.
Okay, that's fine. And your canais are somewhere at the back here or something? Good. Okay, great. Okay, Jennifer stands before you managing attention, communicating respect non-verbally. She's reading, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer.
Hi Jennifer.
So today I'm going to be giving my film speech. I want to start with a quote by Stanley Kubrick, who's a famous film director. He said, "A film is, or should be, more like music than like fiction. It should be a progression of moods and feelings. The theme, what's behind the emotion, the meaning, all that comes later." Well, the film that I'm going to be sharing with you today definitely is a progression of moods and feelings. It evokes a variety of emotions, and it just is a really good movie. The film that I'm going to share with you today is Toy Story 3, and I'm going to talk about how it made me angry, it made me happy, and it also inspired me. The New York Times said that in providing sheer movie-going satisfaction, plot, characters, verbal wit, and visual delight, cheap laughs, and honest sentiment, Toy Story 3 is wondrously generous and inventive. And I definitely agree with this statement. Toy Story 3 was really genuine, and it really helped you feel all these emotions because it's so relatable, and I know you guys will enjoy this movie. The first story I'm going to start off with is the incident in the film that made me feel angry. The incident in the film that made me feel angry was when Lotso, the big fluffy bear in Toy Story 3, deceived the new toys that came to the daycare, and he pretended like he was being really nice and friendly, but in reality he was this evil and cruel bear that was basically punishing these new toys. The reason this made me feel angry was because it reminded me of a time in high school when in English class we were assigned a group project. So I was assigned a partner who coincidentally had the same name as me, Jennifer, and she was really nice at first, and she even invited me over to her house to work on the group project together. However, one day our teacher called us in and told us that parts of our paper was plagiarized off the internet. And I knew that I didn't do it, but my partner, she wouldn't even fess up to her wrongdoings, and she wouldn't say anything. And I didn't want to be like a tattletale and just call her out right then and there. I wanted her to own up to her own self, but she wouldn't do it, and it just made me feel really deceived and betrayed by her. And that's why, just like how Lotso deceived the new toys at the daycare, I felt very deceived, and that's why I felt angry.
Good.
The next incident in the film made me feel happy, and I'm going to share this incident. This incident was when Andy at the end gives his toys to the little girl named Bonnie, even though he's reluctant to do so at first because the toys meant so much to him. And the reason this made me feel happy was because it reminded me of a situation in college when I lived in an apartment with 4 other girls. And living in an apartment with 4 other girls means opening up your closet because everyone can see what's in your closet and they're going to ask to borrow things. And at first, I didn't really like it because I don't particularly like sharing my clothes. But one time, my friend asked me if she could wear this jacket that I had that I used to wear all the time. It was my favorite jacket, but I stopped wearing it and I never even wore it anymore. And at first I was like, I don't really want to give it away because maybe I'll wear it again. But then in the end, I gave it to her as a present. And even though it's like a used jacket, she still wears it a lot and she wears it every day. And it made me feel really happy knowing that she wears it a lot. She wears the jacket a lot even when it was something that I didn't wear. So it's kind of like how Andy gave away something that meant a lot to him in the past, but he needs to move on from it. Even though the jacket was something that I really liked wearing in the past, I didn't wear it anymore, so I gave it to her, and that's why it made me feel happy. The next incident in the film that I'm going to share with you was an incident that inspired me. And this incident was basically throughout the whole film, Woody and his friends are going through this adventurous journey and almost risking their lives or their toy lives to get back to Andy in his home. And they're all doing it because of their love for Andy. And the reason this inspired me was because it reminded me of a time in Korea 2 summers ago. I wanted to go visit my friend who was living almost 2 hours away for her birthday. But it was so far away, and I didn't want to at first, but then I made that 2-hour journey through public transportation, going on various buses and subways to get there. And even though one time I got lost and then I got off at the wrong stop on a bus, but I still got right back on, and I made my way to my friend because of my love for my friend. And the reason this inspired me was because it just reminded me of that time and how I pursued something that I loved or someone that I loved, and it inspired me to do so again. So in summary, I have told you about 3 incidents in the film that moved me. It made me angry, it made me happy, and it inspired me. Like the New York Times, or like Stanley Kubrick said, a film should be a progression of moods and feelings, and Toy Story 3 definitely did that to me. It evoked a variety of emotions that were very relatable, and I really enjoyed this movie. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay up there for your feedback. Okay, where are we? Here we go.
I'm Will.
I will.
I really liked your speech. I thought the stories were really good. My favorite one was the English class one, and I liked how you tied back to the emotion at the end. So you told this incident in the film, the story, and then how it deceived you, how you felt
Right.
deceived.
So we knew exactly what emotion she was talking about feeling, didn't we? Improvement?
I like your speech overall.
Name?
Hi, my name's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
But you can move around, just walk a little more and use a hand gesture just to be more confident. Would be better.
Yes, move 3 times. Well, it was a good quote you started with. I would prefer that you know it so you don't have to hold that note card in your hand. It hurt your credibility a little bit, but you used it for your New York Times quote too. But in the future, try not to use a note card. Just, take the time to learn it and know it. I realize you're a B and it's a little tough. Your sixth statement was good. And your first story of anger, well, yeah, that was a good story about your English class, about the plagiarizing and the girl not fessing up. I had a similar incident here at UCLA, and when I talked to the two people involved, the one girl just said to the other girl, look, I'm not getting kicked out of school. I didn't plagiarize. And the other girl just went, she was silent and wide-eyed, you know, and so she then confessed that she had. So the other girl really called her out. It was an interesting, different kind of ending than you had. You just kind of sat there silently,
I
huh?
did, and then I went back like after to my teacher and told her.
Told her, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's sad. Okay, it was a good story, though, and you returned to your emotion. Happy. Little long in the storytelling, but still sharing your coat with a friend that she used a great deal was well told, and we felt your joy in that. And inspired, a little long, a little vague, but we got the idea that you were inspired by the bus transfer and that sort of thing. You ended on Kubrick, where you started, and that was good. Have high energy, make good eye contact, and have a firm stance. How'd it go?
I don't know about my energy, but I was trying to make eye contact with everyone.
Okay, that's a good goal to have. Did everyone feel that she was reaching out to you? The firm stance can be an enemy if you don't move and just plant yourself, but do move next time. But overall, you did a nice job. Thank you. Okay, that will bring us to William Hatchman.
I have self-evaluation and the can I, but it's for my respect speech because I haven't given them my intro yet.
No problem, William. Okay, you're taller. Significantly taller. Wow. And we're about to hear about 3 emotions that William felt when he watched his film.
Hi, I'm William.
Hi, William.
And I wanted to ask you all, what is it about fictional media that lets it resonate with its audience so strongly? Is it the deep and multifaceted themes it tries to present to us? Maybe it's the minutiae of its production. The prose of a novel, the cinematography of a film, the sound design of a film or a song. Well, I don't know about you all, but for me personally, none of that matters. All I care about is one feeling, the feeling of going fast. And so today I'm going to tell you all about my favorite film, Red Line, and 3 ways in which the film moved me. It overwhelmed me from the start with its opening scene. It made me feel nostalgic with a relationship that was both contentious and friendly, and it made me cheer for its climactic victory in the jaws of defeat. And I know that the way Red Line is presented, of a ridiculous veneer over a true heart and strong characters, will interest you all. Quentin Bellet said for the site Twitch Film that Red Line is the visual and auditory treat for a lifetime, with a cast of characters with a range of believable motivations, emotions, and intentions. And I agree with that completely. Now, the first way Redline moved me was that it overwhelmed me. How it overwhelmed me was right from the start with its opening scene, which was a race. And this race had a colorful cast of characters and a ridiculous set of cars and a literally explosive finish. With the way it started so gung-ho, I almost felt overwhelmed and sucked into this new world instantly. And that reminded me of the first time I rode on a plane. So the first time I rode on a plane was when I had been accepted into some colleges near the end of high school. And so I was going on this plane to scout out different colleges I would like to go to. And first I went to Southern California to scout out some. And although I had some relatives waiting for me in Southern California, I was on that plane ride by myself. And so it felt like I was stepping into a whole new life and entering a whole new world, and I didn't know what to feel at that time. I didn't know how I would make it. I didn't know how this would all would turn out. However, much like the opening scene in Redline, this plane ride set a precedent for how I would expect the rest of my life to go, and now here I am. And then the second way Redline moved me was that it made me feel nostalgic. How it made me feel nostalgic was through the relationship of two characters, Frisbee and Mole. Now, for most of the movie, Frisbee and Mole do nothing but argue. However, near the climax of the movie, Frisbee gets caught in a drug deal gone wrong, and Mole shows up in the nick of time to save Frisbee and help him get out unscathed. This reminded me of a friendship I developed around middle school. Around middle school, I met someone named Omar, and from the outset, we hated each other's guts. We would argue over every little thing, and we would even sometimes argue just for the sake of arguing. However, as time went on, we started to know each other more and more and found out not only did we have a kind of natural chemistry, we had shared a lot of similar interests. As such, by the time high school started, we were good friends, though we still argued a lot. And so this friendship in Redline made me feel nostalgic for both how this friendship started and reminded me of how that friendship is now. And the final way Redline moved me was that it made me cheer with its climax. At the end of the movie, all the major racers in the climactic race have their cars explode and they're left sprinting to the finish line. The main character, JP, ends up winning literally by a hair. And that reminded me of a competition I participated in middle school. It was nothing as bombastic as an explosive race, but it was an academic competition for my school. I and a few other students went to this competition, and both I and the other students were sure that I would get some kind of reward. However, the results came in, and out of the top 5, I didn't get anything. I was left shocked, and I spent the next few days just sulking. However, after those few days, the news came in that they had actually lost my results. And so they graded my results, and as it turned out, I tied for first place. And so I felt exuberant in that moment. I felt triumphant, especially considering before then I had been led to believe I was utterly defeated. And so the movie reminded me of that exuberance, and I couldn't help but cheer. And now, in summary, I've told you all the 3 ways Redline has moved me. It overwhelmed me, it made me feel nostalgic, and it made me cheer. And now, I feel that Redline, through all these moments, despite its ridiculous exterior, has a true heart to it with its cast characters. And so, what I said to start might not have been entirely true. Although I said all I care about is the sense of speed, what I really care about is what comes with that sense of speed, and what Redline gave me with that sense of speed. A truly relatable cast of characters that reminded me of all the hardships I'd endured and all the victories I had garnered myself. Thank you.
Thank you. 5:30.
Hi, my name is Alexia.
Hi, Alexia.
So you are very eloquent, so I really enjoyed your speech. I loved that you didn't just give that you gave a very clear description, like a layout of what your speech, like the stories that you were going to tell, and then in those stories we got even more details, and all your stories were really awesome too.
Thank you, Alexia. Improvement?
I'm Khan.
Hi,
I
Con.
also like your speech a lot, you move around perfectly.
And then, but you went over the handling a little bit quite thoroughly. So next time to work on the work economy a little bit to make it like concise, more concise.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about your speech. You started with rhetorical questions, a series of them, which is okay, not my favorite. But next time, try a poem, a quote, a joke, a story, something else. But you saw how it worked. It caused us to think about what makes fiction so powerful and resonate with us. And then you confessed for you it's speed and the fast movement of the rush. And that was an interesting revelation. So I like that. Your thesis preview was fine. Overwhelmed, nostalgic, and cheer. Okay. And then your sixth statement, you quoted your Twitch film perfectly. And you said you agreed with the quote, and so that was good. And it's quite a rave to say visual and auditory treat for a lifetime. That's quite that's high praise. On your first story, you talked about the overwhelming finish, and then you went on to talk about your first plane ride when you were scouting schools in California. And I guess you were trying to communicate that you were feeling a little overwhelmed the first time you got on the plane, and it was going to work out okay. And so that was your parallel to the feeling of being overwhelmed, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty good, and you fleshed that out nicely, and just return to the emotion and return back and say, and that's why I felt so, overwhelmed. On your nostalgia, you told us the story of is it Omar, is that right?
Yeah.
Your friend Omar, how you argued, and now you don't argue, and now you talk every day, and so I just gave you that nostalgic feeling. And so that was pretty well communicated. On your third story, for your feeling of cheer or happiness, you gave a good story of the academic decathlon of being sad and being not ranked, and then sulking, and then getting ranked and being happy and feeling triumphant. And so that was a pretty good taking us through the paces of your emotions and feelings. So that was pretty good. So that was a pretty good sense of felt sensing there. Your summary, conclusion, tieback were all fine. You did go over time. You said fewer long pauses, more hand gestures, and less stiff posture. How'd it go?
Well, I think I had fewer long pauses, and I did more hand gestures, but I think I still need to work on that and incorporate even more. And for my stiff posture, I moved around more, but I think I was still pretty stiff, so I still need to work on that.
Yeah, maybe take a class in Tai Chi would loosen you up. Have you considered that?
I actually took yoga like a long time ago.
Yeah, well, that slow movement helps loosen you up and relax you, and you're not quite so stiff when you speak. But overall, you did a nice job. I liked it. Thank you, William. Okay, that will bring us to Nancy. Nancy Gomez. She's not here. Okay, good. That's why I brought the green Mimi with me. Ooh, you're a different size. Okay. And Nancy is about to share 3 emotions that she felt from her film.
Hi, my name's Nancy.
Hi, Nancy.
So I'm going to do my speech. So about a week ago, I decided to go back home. I live close by, so I try to go back as much as possible. And even though I go back home, I really try to be productive, which is sometimes hard to do, case in point. I go back and my sister decides to have a movie night with my little niece. I really, really love movies, so I can't help but get into a movie once it starts playing, and that's exactly what happened with this next movie that I'm gonna talk to you all about. And that movie is Spare Parts. Just to give you a little summary, it's about 4 undocumented high school students in Phoenix, Arizona. They enter a NASA-sponsored robotics competition along with colleges, even though they're high school students. Past winners were like MIT, and they had almost no funding, no experience, and yet they enter this competition with a cheap robot named Stinky. And so the Washington Post says, the feel-good story Spare Parts is just as cornball and sappy as it sounds. It's also pretty darn thrilling. And oh, by the way, it's also pretty much true. So I definitely agree with the statement. It could be very sappy at times, but it was very relatable, and it really had like significant themes about the underdog winning or believing in yourself when no one else did. And the way this movie made me feel was that it made me feel amused because of how they were trying to be creative with the robot. It made me feel hopeful because of my complicated relationship with my dad, and it made me feel angry because of the way that one of the boys there was stereotyped. So the first emotion that it made me feel was that it made me feel amused. So there's this part in the movie where they start thinking of ideas of how to build the robot. The robot's supposed to go underwater and complete all these tasks. And they realize that they don't have enough money for all the parts that they need. So they go to the hardware store and they need to find parts that work just as well, but that's cheaper. And that reminded me of my communication studies application, surprisingly, because I don't know if all of you guys know, there's this portion where you have to do a creative part, whether it be a speech, a video. And if you know me, I'm not creative at all. So just looking at that, I didn't even want to apply. But I thought about it for days. I really wanted to do it, and I finally found a video that I had done. It was of me and my friends. It was nothing fancy. It was just pictures and music that accompanied it. But the question that the application asked was why you were so proud of it. And I think that's why I chose that one, because I was really proud of it because it really represented our friendship and how it grew over time. And that just reminded me of how the boys in the movie had to find a way to be creative even when they weren't really creative. And the second emotion that it made me feel was that it made me feel angry. So one of the boys, his name is Lorenzo, he is stereotyped as a typical troublemaker. If anything goes wrong, they point to him, and they don't even doubt it if it's him or not. And even though I was never a troublemaker in high school, I was careless about my grades, 9th grade. I didn't care at all, but towards the end of 10th grade, I got my shit together, and I really wanted to apply to top-notch schools. But my counselor said that I couldn't do it. He said I didn't have a GPA for it, that it was too late by the time that I raised up my grades. But I studied for my APs and SATs really, really hard. I got good scores, and here I am now. And my third emotion is that it made me feel hopeful. So towards the end of the movie, Lorenzo, the guy I had mentioned before, he has a very rocky relationship with his father. His father doesn't really believe in him, but towards the end of the movie, when they're announcing the awards that they won first place in the competition, he looks out to the crowd and he sees that his father went to go see him with this huge accomplishment that he did. He flew all the way from Arizona to UCSB, to see what he had accomplished. And that just gave me hope for my relationship with my dad, because we have a very complicated relationship. He's not very expressive, and sometimes it's hard to know where he's at, but knowing everything he's been through. He did come here undocumented, but he learned English. He's proficient in English now. He runs his own business. He got citizenship a couple years back. So just knowing everything he's been through for his family shows me that he loves me, and that just gives me hope about our relationship in the future. So in summary, I have told you how this movie made me feel. It made me feel angry, it made me feel hopeful, and it made me feel amused. I think this is a great movie that everyone should see. I'm definitely glad I put my studies aside that week and I went home and decided to see the movie. Thank you.
I-16. Okay, where are we? Yeah.
Name's Riley.
Hi, Riley.
I would like to say I thought you talked very well. Your stories were good as well too. You really made us feel the emotion in them. I thought it was good.
Thank you, Riley. Improvement?
I really liked your speech as well.
Start with your name.
Hello, my name's Dot.
Hi,
Hi, Dot.
I liked your speech as well. The only thing I can say is you can probably project your voice a little bit louder. That's about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Dot. Nancy. Well, I don't know how to classify your introduction as just sort of a story, I guess. I went home for the weekend and I watched a movie, right? And that was your intro into, by the way, the movie was Spare Parts. So, and then I would like to have seen more of a mention of that being home and Spare Parts, or really have a sense of tying back to being distracted, but it was worth being distracted. So I had a real sense of a circularity. Well, when you watch yourself tonight on YouTube, you will see that you moved around on the thesis, a significant statement, your quote in interesting order, and you got it all in, and it was fine. And you agreed with the Washington Post quote, so that was fine. On the first emotion, you said you were amused, and so that was the emotion you were trying to communicate. And you told us the plot summary of them trying to come up with cheap parts, and then you told us about COMM studies and coming up with a video that you could finally submit. What I didn't get was you were turning to amused at the end, and I didn't really get so much why you were amused that worked for you, and I lost the amused emotion in the story. Love the story, love the fact that you did that for COMM, but I lost the amused in the story. Similarly, on the emotion of angry, you talked about not doing so well, and I think what you were trying to communicate but didn't, at least to me, was you were kind of pissed off at your guidance counselor who told you were worthless and you weren't college material, right? And so, you were sort of saying you didn't really express that anger so much or relive it so much, but I think that's what you felt, right? And then you said, and so here I am. And so, and again, I would have liked you to have said, but that's why I felt so angry at that man. And I lost the anger in the story. Good story, but lost somehow the thread of the anger in there, and you feeling the anger. Remember the emotion you're communicating in the story. Don't lose track of it in telling the story. Third emotion, hopeful. Rocky relationship with Dad. You have a rocky relationship with your dad, but the fact that he still comes around and still shows love to you no matter what makes you still hopeful, and so I felt your hopefulness, so that was a good communication of your emotion on that one. Your summary, your conclusion was fine. As I said, your tie back could have used a little work. Your canais are somewhere, or just on your goals, your 3 goals. Did you
That was in the self-evaluation.
on this page?
Yeah.
Okay, on
Yeah.
what you want to do next time. Interact with your audience more, move around, make eye contact, and not say, how'd it go?
I don't know if I said, I feel like I would say it, but maybe when I look at myself, I
Okay.
see.
You got the job done. Just don't lose sight of the emotion you're communicating when you're trying to communicate it, and it'll be stronger and more effective. Thank you, Nancy. Okay, that'll bring us to Ting Yu Chang. Are you in the house?
Yeah, I'm in the house.
She's in the house. Okay,
This is for the introduction and the
she
outline for
needs
this
the
speech.
green meaning. Okay, good. Thank you. Audrey. Okay, I'll so note that. Audrey. Yeah, let's silence our phones. Okay, good. Okay, let me get you in focus. She's managing attention. She's communicating respect non-verbally, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi everybody, my name is Audrey.
Hi, Audrey.
So I wanted to start off my speech with a quote from the movie I wanted to share with you today. So it says, "Love is the one thing we are capable of perceiving that transcends the dimensions of space and time." Today I wanted to share with you a movie that really moved me, Interstellar. It made me feel nostalgic, it made me feel emotional, and it made me feel hopeful. Ben Kendrick once critiqued this movie by saying that Interstellar is an imaginative movie, but it's heavily mixed with personal sacrifice and theoretical physics that it leaves little room for storytelling. I disagree with his statement because the movie deals with some significant themes that elicit complex emotions and the understanding of time and space. So I like to start off by painting a theme from this movie. When the father, Cooper, returned to his spaceship Endurance, he learned that 23 years has passed by. So he started playing the messages that were recorded by his family. Though he was separated by millions of miles, that so far yet so close feeling easily elicited complex emotions and the understanding of time and space. So the first incident and the first way this movie moved me was that it made me feel nostalgic. The incident in the movie that made me feel nostalgic was when the father, Cooper, and his daughter, Murphy, drove through a cornfield in his pickup truck to discover an unknown device. It reminded me of this one road trip that I had with my father to Chicago, where we crossed by many states and not millions, but a lot of miles. That energy of excitement and curiosity that I saw in the film reminded me of that exact same emotion I felt when I arrived at the final destination of our road trip. The second way this movie made me moved me was that it made me feel helpless and frustration. It made me very emotional. The incident in the movie that made me feel very emotional was when Cooper entered a tesseract. So, in other words, an archive center where we can see dark polyester cords clinging onto a glass wall. So how I interpret it was that it's not an actual space, but rather a human projection of a human being's lifespan from a different dimension. So the reason why this incident moved me was that it reminded me of the time when my mom called me. I received a phone call, and she informed me that my grandfather back in my hometown, Taiwan, has just underwent emergency cardiac resuscitation, and still remains unconscious till this day. I felt helpless that I can't physically be there for my grandfather, and I felt frustrated. Just like how Cooper felt frustrated and helpless that he was trapped in another dimension behind the glass wall. A third way this film moved me was that it made me feel positive and hopeful. The incident in the movie that made me feel positive and hopeful was when Cooper and his daughter Murphy reunited after decades of years. It was also a bittersweet moment at the end when Murphy had to send off his father yet to a new mission. The reason why this incident made me feel hopeful was that it reminded me of when my parents would send me off to the airport back in Taiwan, my hometown, at the end of every summer and winter break when I would return to LA for school. It would always be a very bittersweet moment, but the reunion of the daughter and the father at the very end of the movie also reminded me that I will be reuniting with my family at the end of this quarter. So it made me feel hopeful and positive. So in conclusion, I shared with you 3 ways that this movie moved me. It made me feel nostalgic, it made me feel emotional, and it made me feel hopeful. The complex emotions in this movie resonated with my personal stories across time and space. So I'd like to tie back to the very beginning of my speech by leaving you with the same exact quote, that love is one thing that we are capable of perceiving that transcends the dimensions of time and space. Thank you.
Thank you. That was 5 minutes and 1 second. Thank you for waiting respectfully at the door.
I think I really like your speech in 2 ways. The first is you tell every story in a very detailed way. I heard a lot of details in every single story, and very specific. And at the same time, you get the result of each story, so I know what's happening at the end of the story. And then secondly, I really love your hand gesture. It's very normal and very natural. In the physical gesture, you communicate with your audience very well.
Okay, thank you. Improvement?
I'm Amy.
Hi, Amy.
I thought it was really good. I thought you were super confident, more so than perhaps like your other 2 speeches, which was really nice. The only improvement I can think of is maybe just to be more smooth throughout your speech and talking and having a better flow, but I thought it was really good.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Well, I was so into your speech, I missed the conclusion. You walked out of the screen, but sorry about that, Aubrey. Well, I liked your quote, and you tied back to it. It was a good quote. So thank you for starting with a quote. Interstellar was a fine choice. And helpless, positive energy, and hope. Nostalgic, helpless, and positive energy, huh? And then you quoted Ben Kendrick, and you disagreed with him, which was good. I like that you did that. Yeah, I'm always nervous when I read a review when it says it's long on special effects and short on storytelling and hard. I kind of tend to avoid those movies, but I think the reviewer was probably a little off here. You also might want to say where the review came from. Yeah. On the first emotion of nostalgic, you remembered a trip where you were crossing the Midwest, going to Chicago. You left out the word cornfields, similar to the cornfields that were in the movie. So, but that would have brought back more of the feeling of nostalgic. But I think that the other thing was, I want you to learn to dwell. You're not giving enough time on the ending part of it when you said, and that's why I felt nostalgic to say, I want you to dwell on that moment when you first saw, Chicago come into view and the stockyards, and you saw the great architecture, and you were amazed at this big, wonderful city, and you wondered, how could this be in the Midwest? Yeah. Okay, on your second emotion, helpless. And by the way, I'm not so sure that you needed the little plot summary, but that's another little aside. On hopeless, I felt your hopelessness at not being able to do anything for your grandfather that's sort of unconscious in Taiwan. Well, a little more on that. Just, I didn't know, should I call, should I write, should I send flowers, what should I do? I just felt, elaborate on it. And remember the frustration, and that's what I call felt sensing. Re-feel it so we feel it again, so feel it more. Don't just say, I felt, frustrated, and repeat the emotion at the end. Finally, hopeful. This was your best, but again, dwell on more of, I get homesick, I get lonely, I do look forward. Sometimes I cry when I leave my parents, but it's nice, it's bittersweet when I get to see them and I get to come back to them. So something more like that. So I'm just looking for just a little bit more emotion from you, if you can do that. Your canais were to be concise, communicate emotion, maintain strong and meaningful eye contact with the audience. How did it go, Audrey?
Like you said, I think I could have communicated more emotion by sort of telling more detail in my story.
Yeah.
But I felt like I was more concise this time around.
Yes.
And then also, I think I did better on communicate or eye contact.
Yes. So you're making good progress. Keep up the good work. Thank you. Okay. Do we have time for one more? Okay. Is Stephanie Billings in the class? Stephanie? Okay, rock and roll. Oh boy. Yeah, I think we have enough battery. I hope we don't run out.
I mean, I can go next time at the beginning if you want.
Would
that be easier?
No. Let's just
Also,
get it done.
Evaluation at the back is from my first speech since I
Okay.
was done.
Real good.
Study buddy.
Okay. She's texting. Managing attention. Communicating respect non-verbally. Say to yourself, I respect my audience. Finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name. Feel the love.
Hi, I'm
Start
Stephanie.
your speech. Hi, Stephanie.
The famous author Victor Hugo once said, "Those who do not weep do not see." And this quote can be interpreted many different ways, but I found it quite applicable a couple years ago when I found myself sobbing on my couch, surrounded with tissues, watching one of the saddest movies I've ever seen. When I watched it, I felt like I could truly see and feel all of the emotions that the director and the author was trying to make me feel. And this movie was My Sister's Keeper. And while I watched the movie, I felt things like sadness, nostalgia, as well as hope. When the film was reviewed by someone in The Guardian, he once said that My Sister's Keeper shows empathy, aspirational lifestyle choices, upscale family values, with a tastefully rendered terminal illness. This movie is a total must. Some films have certificates like U or PG, but this should be certificate with OMG, with a row of teardrops and frowny face emoticons. And I couldn't agree more with this quote by Mr. Bradshaw. I feel like the movie itself showed emotions as well as struggles that every family goes through and told a coming-of-age story through the eyes of a little girl whose older sister was passing away from cancer. So today I'll tell you not only about how I wept this entire movie, but also how it moved me in more ways than one. The first way this movie moved me was it made me feel sad. And the scene specifically that made me feel sad was when Kate, the main character, was laying in her deathbed in the hospital, and her whole family came and gathered around her and talked about and shared stories that they all loved. And this really hit home for me because I had a year before watching this movie had an aunt who was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and was in the hospital about to pass away. And my whole family got to go and visit her for one last time. And we all got to gather around her bed and say our goodbyes. And the parallels that I saw between this scene, the grief that people felt, the sadness, and how they embrace each other were oh too similar to when we got to say our goodbyes to my aunt. So as I found myself sitting on my couch, I was overcome by the sadness and couldn't help but cry and remember the great memories that I did have with my aunt. The second way that this film made me feel was it made me feel nostalgic. There's a scene where Kate and her family escape from the hospital and get to go to the beach for a day. And it's a really cool scene where her whole family is happy. They get to play, they get to swim, and they get to spend a day where they didn't have to think about Kate being sick, or they didn't have to worry about the stressors of life. And it made me feel nostalgic because this is exactly what my family does every summer. We got to go and pack up my mom's Suburban with all of our toys, all of our beach towels, and our immense amount of sunblock, and go to the beach and spend a day where my parents and I got to all play together, and my sisters and I would build sandcastles, and it's a really cool memory that I have, and memories that I have, where the world's worries kind of just melt away, and you feel like you get to celebrate your family and be there and be in a place where nothing like cancer or death or those things boggle you down. And so that's why when I was sitting on my couch, I felt transported to Santa Barbara with my parents at the beach when I saw Kate and her family get to go to the beach together. The last emotion that I felt like this movie made me feel was hopeful. So there's a scene in the movie where Kate's mom finally comes to deal with the fact that her daughter is dying. The whole movie she's fighting it, and she wants her daughter to live, and she does everything that she can to make that happen. And there's a scene where she shaves her head, and it's the transition where her mom goes from this protective mother to her best friend. And this hit home for me because I too have a really protective mom who calls me every day, makes sure that I'm okay, and just checks in all the time. And my mom is my biggest support system, as well as somebody who I could call, who would come down here and beat somebody up if anybody hurt me. And so this scene made me hopeful though, because I know that if I was in Kate's position and I was diagnosed with cancer, that my mom would be there fighting for me, and that as well there would be a point where she would be okay with me dying. And so it was a really cool scene that made me feel hopeful, even though it was bleak and Kate is dying, that my mom would be okay with it. So in summary, I've shared with you 3 different emotions that my sister's keepers made me feel. I was sad when Kate was on her deathbed at the beginning and her family supported her. I was nostalgic when her family went to go to the beach together. And lastly, I was hopeful when her mom came to terms with her death. As you can see, this movie made me go on a roller coaster of emotions, and it tugged at my heartstrings. It made me bankrupt all of my tissues in tears that I had, as well as it made me feel hopeful and made me remember things that I had forgotten. So at the beginning, I told you guys a quote that said that those who do not weep cannot see. And I feel like this movie, My Sister's Keeper, made me see and feel emotions that I hadn't felt in a long time. Thank you.
511.
Hi, my name is Jennifer.
Hi, Jennifer.
I like how confident you were up there, and you seem to really know your speech and all your stories, and they flowed well with how you typed them back to how you felt while you were watching the movie.
Improvement.
Hi, I'm Zoe.
Hi, Zoe.
Jennifer, I really liked your speech. I thought it was concise and clear. I think that your word economy could have been a little bit better, but overall it was a really great speech.
Okay. Good. Thank you. I like your speech. Like the Hugo intro and tie back. Powerful quote, you know. I mean, especially people that we don't have emotions really aren't seeing the world, aren't, kind of robotic, and I like that a lot. Your quote in your preview was fun. Your quote was funny, and so I'm glad you pulled that out. I like the thing about OMG with rows of teardrops and frowny face emoticons. So that was funny. And you agreed with it, and you had sort of a second preview then. My only suggestion would be on your first one about when you talked about your aunt dying and being gathered around and all that kind of stuff and remembering that. Remember the sadness that you felt and go back, re-feel it, and then say, and that's, and sitting on the couch, that's why I felt so sad, and remembering her too. Say the word emotion again. Say the emotion you're portraying. On the beach, I thought this was your best one. I got the feeling of you going off to Santa Barbara and enjoying the day, and there is something about when people go to the beach. I know I was talking to a lifeguard. He said this is why I take a low-paying job, because people at the beach are here and they're relaxed and they're happy, and it's a happy place. There's very little unhappiness at the beach. There's sharks, etc. But yeah, so I thought that you got that and you portrayed that well, and you portrayed that nostalgia well. Just saying, reminded me nostalgic, that sort of thing. On the hopeful, it was a stretch, but you gave your mother a lot of kudos for saying she would understand if you were dying and she would shift roles, and so that was interesting. But you got it in, and so that was good. And I think you know your mother well enough to be hopeful that she would be that way. It's a very difficult thing, we don't have time to go into it in a long sort of way, but yeah. Your summary was fine, just a little bit of more word economy. Conclusion was good, and your tie back to your quote was fine. You said walk 3 times, speak with confidence, keep good eye contact with your audience. How'd it go?
I think the eye contact, I felt really uncomfortable the first time giving my first speech, so I felt like it was a little bit better. Still awkward and still hard to scan it in a way that, makes sense.
Yeah.
Walking, I did move, but I think I didn't do it necessarily in the way that you taught us, so maybe trying to practice that a little bit more.
And practice when you're practicing your speech moving. You won't just automatically do it right when you're here on your own. Okay, you did a nice job. Thank you. Our work is done. Return with honor. Yes. Yes.
At the end of our thesis, giving a preview, talking, and then I felt like with the review, was it necessary to give another preview? I almost felt like I wanted. Okay, I felt like I wanted to almost move it after the review without being wrong.
Yeah, that would have been okay. That would have been okay. You gave another one. That was fine.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have class like an hour.
You were first.
I'm a B too, and I didn't get to do it today.
Why? How did I miss you?
I don't know.
What's your name?
Giovanna Martin.
Martin?
Yes.
Are you on here?
I don't think she's on there. I remember.
Oh, that's why.
Yeah, on the first day of class, I told you I wasn't there, and then you said you marked me down.
Okay, M-A-R?
Yeah, Martin.
How'd you become?
First name?
Giovanna. And you told me on the first day of class that I was B, because I wasn't on the rest.
All right, well, so I guess we'll get to you Thursday or whatever.
Okay. And I still haven't done my intro too, because we haven't had time to.
Yeah, well, whenever.